Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to AlternativeTwist.com and your favorite show, I hope, being independent. We're going to start off with a little sailing music today from WeAreJackStrong. This song's called Small Craft Warning.
The sails, destinations lie ahead. We've got dreams, we've got plans. Chart a new course is what we said. I know we're ready for this crossing. We can handle the route.
Depending upon the kind of music you play, your look and the way your stage show goes over may be more important than your music. And improving it isn't hard. It's a matter of defining it as something that's important to your band, like playing your parts right or remembering the lyrics. When you are on stage, you are an entertainer, and your entertainment value is as much a part of how you behave and how you look as how you sound. Your stage behavior, stage presence, and stage look are critical in establishing your connection to the audience that's in front of you and causing some of them to become long-term fans. Before determining a look for your band, you need to put some thought into who's coming to see you and what will they respond to. And by respond, I mean what will make them want to come see you again and bring their friends? What will make them talk about you? What will make them look for your videos? I don't think you need to be outrageous. I don't think you need to be vulgar. I don't think you need to be anything you don't want to be. You shouldn't be anything you're not comfortable with. You should be authentic and natural, but you should be visible and entertaining and identifiable. I feel like I could name 100 bands that you know that have these characteristics in their stage show, but that's just the point. If I can name them and you know them, it's because they're big band. They made it. It's hard to name a band that has made it that doesn't have a great stage show. I can name bands that you and I both know that I don't like their music, and you'd probably agree with some of them. But I can't name anybody that doesn't have a great stage show that has made it. I don't believe I'm saying that the stage show is more important than the music, but I am saying that it's very important. And it's up to you as a band leader to use whatever means you can to determine who your audience is and what kind of a stage show should engage them, and start putting on that show as soon as you can. Stage shows are, by the way, a thing that evolves, and you can change quickly and easily if they're not working. So don't be afraid to experiment and have fun, and encourage the other people in your band to do the same thing. It's a good idea to look at other bands in your genre, bands that have made it, that play the same genre of music you do, and see what kind of things they do. There will be a broad range of things, and you can pick and choose elements from different shows to consider adapting into your show. I'm not advocating copying other established acts. I am saying be original. You can model yourself after existing successful acts without copying them at all, and eventually evolve into just the right style for you. The reason I bring it up at all is because it is so critically important to getting to the next steps that you guys want to get to. I will tell you that for my band, WeAreJackStrong, my bandmates and I analyzed at great length who the first 10 songs that the band wrote, and described the person that might have written them, different people that might have written them. Who sounds like this? Who talks about these things? And we joked back and forth about how it was a guy who sounds like he has problems in his head, and that he must have been raised badly and learned some things as he went down the road and started to work on himself to become a better person. because some of the songs were about how crazy he was, then some of the other songs were about, pretty well-adjusted stuff. So I thought a lot about the character. Those were his characteristics, and I thought about who he might be. And I imagined an old man, some guy born around 1910. I Googled some pictures of what men wore in 1910 and tried to get some of that stuff. I found out that they were pretty dull colors. All the pictures were all black and white anyway, but I was able to find some of the articles of clothes, a hat and a bow tie and the suspenders, long sleeve shirts, and these crazy pointy shoes. Even though nobody could see them, they were part of the character. So I bought them in 3 different color schemes, white, black, and red. I couldn't bring myself to ask the other guys in the band to wear the same kind of clothes because they weren't into it the way I was. But I did ask them to limit what they wore on stage to those colors, red, white, and black, and gold, because gold always looks good on stage. So we went that way, and that was a way I could think of linking our music to our look and making a look that could be across the whole band. Now, for anybody to really get it, anybody in the audience to really get it, they'd have to know our lyrics very clearly and have analyzed them somehow, so that's probably never going to happen. But it's not necessary that they see it the same way I do. It's only necessary that they see the linkage and that it's something I'm confident in, that the band is confident in. And we are, so we own it. Owning your stage show is something you have to do. And if you don't like the stage show you own, then you have to change it. And it seems to be working. If at any moment it seems not to be working, I'll change it. We're going to move on and start talking to the band leaders now. The first band leader we're going to talk to is Jay McGuerty from Coastal Groove. I'm going to play one of my favorites by them. It's called Dirty Barry. Who do you believe Coastal Groove's audience will be?
A demographic of the age group of 35 and up, 25 to 35, because what I call a couple of my originals jazz-ish, they can come off to a younger crowd as indie. And I'm the worst with labeling songs in terms of the genre.
No, Jay, you're not. Most musicians are terrible at figuring out what genre they are, who their audience may be, what bands they may sound like. When a band finally comes out of the cave long enough to start wanting to gig and sell themselves, they find out that the first thing they need is an electronic press kit or an EPK. And in an EPK, you have to tell about yourself. There are sections in the EPK that are called long bio and short bio, and they're hardly biographies at all. What they really are is a PR blitz about who you sound like, what you're like, your influences, so that people have some expectation without ever having heard you, whether or not you'll fit in with what they're doing. It's the first time that you really have to pigeonhole yourself for the sake of being marketed. And most musicians that have just come out of the cave have no desire at all to pigeonhole themselves. They feel that they've been working on something very special. And this is where the business meets the art. Now that Jay's identified his demographic, I want to ask some questions about what he thinks those people need to see in order for him to capture their attention and make fans.
Sadly, we're not that sophisticated yet. It's largely organic, and I will give credit to the bass player, Laura Payne, who she has naturally good stage presence, and she's vocal on stage, and she moves around a good bit. And I, being somewhat tied to the microphone, we need to work on that, and that's an element that I have not gotten to, and I'm glad you raised it, because it's at the end of the day, we are entertainers, and if you neglect the visual presentation of what you are, it can diminish the way that the material and the overall impression of the band comes across.
Jay's right. Bands that are looking for fans are battling over hearts and minds, and shows have to be very engaging to win that battle. I would never view it as a competition with other bands, because any member of the public can love as many bands as they want, so you just want to be one of them. So you're really in competition with yourself, trying to be more interesting than you already are. Do you guys have a look that you're going for?
In some gigs, for example, like the San Diego Fair, being that we're on the coast and our name is Coastal Groove, we're going to go in Hawaiian shirt attire. At most gigs, I like a little bit of the 50s, 60s jazz look myself. I like the look. I'm comfortable in it. I generally go with a black or a dark navy blue sport coat over a white t-shirt. Right now I'm using, semi-faded blue jeans, but, with my wife's encouragement, I'm going to be adding more standard dark trousers. And
so I get it. Jay's a saxophone player, and his band plays this jazzy music, and he's going for this 50s, 60s kind of jazz look. I totally get it. That'd be a great place for the band to start testing a look. Jay has played with my band, WeAreJackStrong, several times, and he went on to talk about our look on stage.
You've really trademarked you've got a trademarked look there with WeAreJackStrong, and I've heard a number of people comment on it, and all of them in good ways, by the way. It speaks to essentially the point of what your question is does the band have a look? And again, I'm going to give we're working on that part.
As far as I know, everybody's working on all the parts of being in a band all the time, and this is an important part to be working on. We also talked in the conversation about what's called blocking, that is, the stage movements. And I asked Jay if they had rehearsed any stage movements, and he had said no. They're prioritizing getting a bigger repertoire to be able to play longer gigs, and that's certainly appropriate. But when you get those gigs, whatever gigs you're getting, you need to look a certain way for people so they remember you. On major gigs, we do try to have a coherent look.
Yes.
And so you have talked to the band about that, because it's all about talking to the band and getting them to understand that that's part of it.
And the good news is that I generally, a word to the wise, and by the way, that's one of the advantages of having women in the band.
Yeah.
They're usually a little bit more up on the attire component than the schleppy guys are. Once again, Laura's usually the first one on. It's like, hey guys, what are we all going to wear? She generally will raise the subject, even though I may have thought of it, but she'll often bring it up first. And fortunately, we usually arrive at a quick decision, without a lot of contention.
That no contention thing is a gift. I have had guys in bands that I was in absolutely refuse to wear anything but whatever they wore to work. I firmly believe that not having a particular look holds a band back. I firmly believe that. And not having to argue about it is great. But doing whatever you can to increase your acceptance by the crowd is always in your favor. Jay brought up yet another interesting point when he brought up the venue's perspective on how the band looks.
Yeah. Let me add another component to that. I look at what the bar's image is trying to sell. Not entirely, but to ignore it, let's put it this way, I feel it's important to kind of like, if you're playing up at Encinitas, Mr. Peabody's and Cafe at Encinitas, I generally prefer to be well-dressed when I'm there because there are some well-dressed people in the crowd. And and I think a lot of that type of bar, they like to attract that kind of clientele. So I'm sort of trying to dress to the image that I think that the bar is interested in, that intersects with the people, as you mentioned, who then identify with not just your music, but your visual presentation as well. So, and then that has to be, to a certain degree, blended in with the likes and the dislikes of the band members.
I understand what you're saying, but I'll tell you my feeling on it. If we built this package that's music and appearance and stage presence, stage moves, etc. We built this package, and if somebody doesn't like some element of it, they're probably not my people.
Yes. I think that's pretty good reasoning here. Apparently my cat agrees.
With Jay's brand of sexy swinging jazz, it's not likely he's going to get hired in a country western bar or a biker bar or a metal bar. But if he did, and he felt like his acceptance would be higher if he dressed like a cowboy or dressed like a biker, then I think he's barking up the wrong tree. That's the whole point I'm making. If you have any thoughts on this, you can send them to beingindie2@gmail.com. That's BEINGINDIE and the number 2 @gmail.com. beingindie2@gmail.com. Next band leader to chip in on this topic is Tom Schwend from Surf Farmer. Tom writes songs, plays guitar, and sings for Surf Farmer. And here's one of my favorites by them called Twilight.
It's the moonlight in the skies that calls me back to memories. Saw the Milky Way at night before they built the cities. Cold air flows through my lungs with you beside me in Pine Tree. You made me love your compassion the most. It hasn't gotten easier, but the beauty's not lost.
I've seen Surf Farmer a lot of times, and WeAreJackStrong has played on the bill with them, and we sit and watch their act. It's very engaging, very fun to watch. I'm kind of jealous. So I thought I'd ask a couple of questions. Light system? Light show?
No, just a couple of cowboy hats. That's probably what
Have you ever thought about using lights?
Yeah. I have in other bands. It's just, I don't know, I'm kind of, we're trying to travel light, I guess, and keep it as easy as, especially me driving from Julian. I don't feel like loading up the truck too bad with a bunch of extra gear,
I can't help but think, to up the level of my show, that having those things, like, the stage at the Navajo, they have it lit pretty well.
Yeah.
They have a lot of interesting stuff going on. And when I play a place that doesn't have it lit in an interesting way, I think if we brought lights in we could make this a lot more interesting, and I think the patrons would dig it. Part of what we're doing is trying to find people that would like your show so well that they would talk to somebody else, or they would seek out, they would be willing to go see you again. As far as putting together the way the show is staged, in other words, do you think about what the audience is going to see? I mean, you mentioned the Stetsons, but do you think about anything more on a smaller scale than that, like how you guys are going to dress, what colors you want on stage, anything like that?
Yeah, we don't coordinate with each other. I usually like to wear some kind of a surfer shirt, like a hang 10 or something like that, especially if I'm sporting the cowboy hat, just to get that irony, you know. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, it's just basically where we're positioned on the stage. I want to make sure we're not, you know, blocking Ryan so no one can see him. And, you know, if Beth doesn't make every show, but if she's going to be there, then I'll usually be center and, you know, Beth on the right, Donna on the left.
Another way to make things interesting is to change the lineup in the band, and I don't mean fire anybody. I mean, on one or two songs, have a guest player come up. Do you know Coastal Groove? Do you know Jay McGuerty?
Sounds familiar. I think I've heard that name.
Okay. He's a saxophone player. He played sax on one of our songs that we recorded. Did just a bang-up job. He's a really good player. It's nice to have people guest with you. Yeah. Come in, and to me it sounded great. I'm not sure how much he liked it, but he likes playing it with us. So
cool.
It is nice to have a different instrument in the band pop up like that. Next up, we talked to Tate Sanderson of the Johnny Rock Band. Johnny Rock Band puts on a hell of a show, and I think it's in large part to Tate's leadership. He is also a member of the Green Jelly Band. If you've never heard of them, they're a notoriously showy band in the LA area. You can Google them and see for yourself. But first, I'd like to start off with a song from Johnny Rock. This one's got a definite San Diego beach vibe, and it's called Comic-Con.
A galactic gathering, a sci-fi connection, cosplay mania, disguise your reflection. Aliens, wizards, superheroes, and zombies. Best convention is the bee's knees. Comic-Con. 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 Comic books, movies, old films, TV. Directors, producers, creators you see. Fans are unique.
Do you guys have a particular look that you go for? Like, do you plan out what clothes you're going to wear before the show with the other people?
Yeah, I went and bought like 20 beachy type shirts, you know, so everybody can pick out their own beachy shirt and then grab one of those. And sometimes, you know, we'll change shirts between songs, you know, to have a different look for a certain song or whatever. And then I like to wear different hats and different people in the band, like, you know, we're doing a cowboy song. Hey, everybody put on a cowboy hat, you know, we're doing a pirate song, you know, but whatever, just, you know, have different looks for different songs and make it fun, you know, break out a bullhorn, you know, any kind of extra prop to, you know, make it fun, you know, and throw stuff out at the audience like a handful of candy or something.
So Johnny's strategy is to have a look for different songs, different groups of songs, different types of songs, and just have a big party atmosphere. I'll tell you what, if you ever get to go to one of his shows, you'll see what a big party it is.
Comic-Con.
Co-owner of Silver Sun Productions, Mr. Chris Holloway, took a few minutes to talk to me briefly about some of the options for effects when you're putting on a show. Let's talk about your specialty, lighting and PAs and various theatrical equipment that are supplied along with stages, like pyrotechnics and stuff. Do you guys do any of that?
Mostly lighting, stage, and sound. That is our main thing.
Okay.
But we're doing a gig in August where we're getting confetti cannons. I do, I don't mess with pyro. Pyro is a lot of licenses, and insurance doesn't like pyro, and my insurance doesn't cover pyro. So I don't really mess with pyro. But CO2 cannons, I've used in the past. Obviously hazers, fog machines, that kind of stuff. But primarily my personal area of expertise is sound.
So I think I'm honing in here that there's not much of a substitute for being interesting looking, having good stage presence, and maybe having some good lights to put on a show for 90% of the bands that I'm talking to. Bigger bands do other things, and we'll cover that later. But here's somebody who does an awful lot with his costumes, and that's Fritz Jensen of Puttin on the Fritz. I'd love to see Fritz doing this one at a show. I can just imagine the moves. It's called Right Now.
Well, I seen you walking down the street, looking sexy and you smelling sweet. I asked you if you had a name, you said yes and you walked away. I saw you sitting with some guy when I was sure that you caught my eye. And then you gave me a look and said, and whoa, that look just a knock me dead. You got it, I want it, come on baby, give it to me right now, right now. I said, you got it, I want it, come on baby, give it to me right now, right now.
So when we talked about songwriting, you said that Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones, were a big influence on you. Is that your main influence?
Oh, they're a big pop influence on me, but my hugest influences, I think, would be bands like Aerosmith, Van Halen, and Kiss, and Pink Floyd, or David Bowie, and even some Who with the performance rocks in there. Anyone who does performance rock and entertainment rock, whether it's a show or total like Pink Floyd, where it's a production. I just enjoy being entertained. There's a lot to be said for a band that's going to put on a whole show. I really appreciate being entertained at the show. So I've always went for that over-the-top Kiss performance, Aerosmith, Pink Floyd, Wall, all this gigantic show that, you can put on and be more entertaining than just the music. And, you have to have the music, otherwise it's like, that's the whole foundation you're standing on. But to tell a story in theatrical ways, I find to be interesting.
I've seen your act, and I thought it was fantastic. It seemed like you changed costumes after every song or before every song.
I trying to do that, being a chameleon. I seen Fee Waybles with the Tubes, and I was just devastated at how he chameleoned into different people so quickly with outfits that it's like it wasn't some giant elaborate production. He just went over and put on a couple, changed quickly, a wig, boom, boom, combed his hair different, threw on a jacket. Suddenly he's another person on stage,
And you had a lot of stage banter too. You were talking to the audience a lot.
We're trying to do that. Keep the show going there, engage the audience as much as you can, and keep them a part of the show. They want to be part of it, and by doing something simple, I have simple props that I bring out, and you just see people, instead of all of a sudden they're just mingling, you can just see them tapping their buddy, hey, look, and now they're kind of watching the show. What something might happen, because it's not just music now. Hey, this guy's not just gonna
sing and we can hear him, and I can still hear him. Oh no, they're like, no, he's doing a show, so if I look away I'm going to miss something. Yep, they're engaged to watch now.
When you guys rehearse, do you rehearse the show staging, how that's going to happen?
Whenever possible, yes. And I think if you noticed that first show when you saw me, I had the dressing gazebo that was on the base side of the stage, which was the premiere of that particular prop that I bring out, and elaborating on it continuously since then as my portable dressing room. And if you didn't notice what it is, it's basically just my bass case that I took cardboard shelves and made them myself with pegs on them and clamped them into the top and the bottom so the bass case won't close. And then I manufactured a shelf inside the bass case itself that stays in the case and flips down for the middle shelf, so that I can put all my props in this little gazebo. And I put I took a guitar stand that that you put your guitar on, and I broke the 3 legs off of it and clamped it to the top, and that's what holds my banner up there. I can stand behind the gazebo and quickly change. I feel if you see me changing, it draws away, where if I disappear and come out changed, it's more dramatic. I know he's changing back there, but you can't see me bent over with my butt in the air. It's like, okay, you hide and then you come out, ta-da.
So Fritz is committed to his show, and that does my heart good, because that means he's committed to his audience. He's committed to entertaining. He believes that if the music and the visual package are powerful enough, he'll draw a huge audience. And I think he's right. And drawing a huge audience is pretty important. When I asked him why he went to all the trouble to build this gazebo for his changes, he said,
I was trying to elaborate my show with more changes. And again, I didn't like, just reaching down in a bag and bending over and putting it on the side of the stage. I want to walk out in the presentation rather than have you see me dressing.
He wants to do it in a manner that's not awkward or difficult and puts the audience at ease so that they can really enjoy the show that's going on. I think that's a winning attitude.
So how about the other guys? Do the other guys, do they practice when they're going to make a stage move or anything like that?
Everybody in the band is starting to practice their stage show. After that first show we did, you were there on that night. I was getting feedback from Chucky at the soundboard, and he said, well, when you disappear behind your little dressing room, the show kind of stalls a little bit, and so I just sat down and made up 20 stupid things that you would say, anything dumb, it doesn't even matter as long as it's silly and corny, and there's no dead time,
Yeah.
I said, you go up to the mic and you say, hey, how did that taste? You want some more? Here's some more. Wow, 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 wow. You look over your shoulder and you see me standing there at the gazebo with my hat on and I'm ready to come out. Then now there was no dead time.
So instead of just telling the guys that they need to think of something to say while he's changing and leaving it at that, he actually sat down and led. He sat down and wrote 20 things that were corny and silly, things that those guys can do while he's changing to minimize the dead time between the end of one song and the beginning of the other. Another thing that everybody ought to be trying to do.
The other members, do they have particular outfits that they wear, or do you control what they wear on stage or suggest what they wear on stage?
I highly suggest but cannot control because it's a hobby. If I was paying everybody would be doing everything I said like James Brown, but it's a hobby and we're 3 adults and you have to ask people.
Fritz is very serious about the show part of the show business. And he related to me a story about a conversation between him and his mother about a young man who'd asked him if he could be in the band.
Before I tell him he can join the band is if I ask him to wear a dress, will you? And my mom's like, why would you say that? Because I don't want no flack. If I want him to wear a dress, I want him to wear a dress. And I don't want to hear a bunch of flack about it because it goes with the song that I'm doing and I need you to do it. We're a performance rock band and I don't want to hear a bunch of jive about me asking you to do some performance stuff.
And I don't think Fritz is looking to make a big show and then a bigger show and then a bigger show. I think he's looking to do something perfect because of what he said about James Brown.
You mentioned James Brown, and he was renowned for being a very direct band leader.
Oh, totally. He'd point at you on stage, and I mean, you got a fine, and if he pointed at you again, you probably don't work with him ever again. He was like, "We're here, we're perfection. We're not goofing around." So, you know, obviously he got everybody working. So, you know, when people are working, you're going to have a higher standard. Where again, we're back to a hobby band. I got to be like, "Hey guys, let's make it fun for everyone."
Remember, you heard this from me first, that when Fritz gets his band working and his show is together and he's doing what he wants to do in front of crowds, everybody in the band is going to be getting paid big and they're going to be doing what he says. Kilian Duarte is a world-famous bass player and probably one of my favorite people in the whole world. He's played off-Broadway, he's played with wedding bands, he's played with, most recently on tour with a technical metal band called Fallujah. He's a member of Scale the Summit, Abiotic, and Lattermath. And I'd like to say he's gifted, but he works way too hard to be gifted. Anyway, he just got off tour with Fallujah, a national tour with Fallujah, and is going on an international tour with Fallujah later this year, I believe. So when he returned just a few weeks ago, he and I had a conversation, and I talked to him about the show.
For the last tour that you did, how did you guys arrive at what you were going to look like, how the stage was going to look, what the show was going to be from the viewer's point of view?
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of interesting. So the show is run off a laptop, so we have a giant project file that will also has, for the guitar players, MIDI patch switches, so everything's automated and a click running to in-ear monitors.
So for this show, they're running a production file on a computer, and it's sending a click track to everybody's in-ear monitors, and it's sending MIDI information to the guitarist's effects, so that all the effects happen exactly at the same time, exactly in the same way, every show. So they've got things synchronized down to a pretty high level. This is what it sounds like when an organization wants to minimize the chance of making mistakes and optimize the chance of doing a perfect job and leaving the audience with a fantastic experience to remember.
So I'm going to start basically with the main show file audio-wise. So it's running off a project file. We create an intro, like beforehand, Scott will make an intro music piece, like with that. And then what we do now, which is a very common thing, unless you're massive, is that a tour package will share an LD and a sound engineer.
An LD is a lighting director.
Which saves everyone money. They like it because they make more money. So it just kind of is convenient for everyone. So we shared an LD and a front of house engineer with Rivers of Nile and Alluvial. We'll have like a light show that they kind of gravitate towards with the house lights that are available. Rivers is the headliner. So for us as direct support, we still have a light show, but it's only using the house lights.
Okay. So, you depend on the house lights for the lighting equipment, but you have your own LD.
So for us, the headliner also brings their own lighting rig as well. So they have a combination of their lighting rig and the house. But audio-wise, it's a massive project file where we have that. Everything's clicks with in-ears. We're using wireless Sennheiser units. Me and Scott have molded IEMs. I decided to just pull the trigger and get some molded for me, which it's fantastic. You're thinking about getting like the cheaper ones at Guitar Center or getting them molded. The molded ones are awesome, and also like if for the metalheads, if they're molded, they will not fall out of your ears for any reason.
Certainly if all that information for the show is coming through your inner monitors, you do not want them to fall out of your ears. So why take a chance on putting on a less than perfect show? Get molded in-ear monitors.
Like I was going absolutely nuts and they will not fall out. Like it's pretty much, you would have to literally throw me around the room for the molded in-ears to get out of my ears. So
how do you guys decide what you're going to wear?
That's kind of just like a thing with Fallujah. We just use we're kind of basic, but we're a little bit cleaner looking than some other bands. Like we don't do like the cargo shorts thing. We it's just like, black pants, like more form-fitting pants.
Yeah.
And then the tops can have some band logos, but for the most part, it's all black. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very much that. And just a lot of the big thing with us is stage presence. Like, we're very animated live. So we're definitely not a statues band. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that for some aesthetic bands, but in my opinion, that only works if you're doing like the Meshuggah thing where your lighting show is so sick.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not talking, and we had a really good light show, but I'm talking about that your light show is so next level that, you know, you don't need to, you could sit there like a frog. But like, in my opinion, the best thing for everyone involved is that like, you're very animated. So it's just, long black pants, you know.
But you choose that, you discuss it, what you're going to look like.
I know there was definitely discussions about that. Like, I remember like one day in Florida, just because of laundry, like we had no options. We had to wear some shorts, and it was just like a thing. But he was like, "Hey guys, so, like, just let you know, it's fine for tonight." But like in general, like we're not like one of those bands that just shows up on stage wearing whatever. It definitely is supposed to look at least, you know, somewhat aesthetically cohesive. Like our singer has a jacket that he wears every night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like our drummer has specific stage clothes and stuff like that. So we're not like as advanced as like, you know, like Ghost, where they have a genuinely like
costumes,
like a full-on costumes and stuff like that. But we definitely had clothes that we designated, and especially pants and stuff like that were for stage to look a little bit more uniform and stuff like that. We definitely are not like the reverse baseball cap cargo shorts metal band, which there's nothing wrong with that, because there's certain styles where that aesthetic looks cool for like what it is. Like if you're playing in Lamb of God, looking like you work at AutoZone is kind of cool for
it works for the audience. The audience identifies with that look.
Yeah, but the sound for us is way more serious and dark, so like it's kind of like, you know, you kind of want to make it so that it's not usurping the sound that you're playing, you know.
So your look is cool so long as it supports the music that you're playing and appeals to the fans you're seeking.
The animated activity that you're talking about on the stage, do you guys rehearse that? Do you discuss it and rehearse what you're going to do? Or is it totally...
Rehearse not so much, but we definitely have discussions of it. So like, perfect example is like, so like when the intro music happens, if the stage is big enough and we can be off stage, we come on stage at a very designated time with a certain order of people. So like Andrew will be the first one, because obviously drums, you want to get everyone out of the way, and then it would be Sam, then myself, then Scott, and then Kyle, the singer, being the last person, you know, that comes up and hypes up the band right before it first happens. Like rehearse in the sense of like, you know, like Michael Jackson, like we have rehearsals, no, but it's definitely discussed. And and also stage presence. Like one of the things that we did also was like for the first shows, like, you know, we'd watch the performances. So Scott has a thing where he twitches. The shows were live on Twitch for his followers. And we'd watch back and be like, oh, you know, it'd be sick at this point in time. We all headbang here at this point. Or like in this point, when Sam's taking a solo, we'll go back towards the drums. So there is actually some coordination, and there is definitely discussion.
Yeah, there's
as for like rehearsal, no, but yeah, absolutely. We have points in the show where, like if someone's taking a solo, like we make a point that the other people like go back a little bit, and certain riffs that are very heavy, everyone headbangs in unison at that moment, and certain hype moments that we want to emphasize with that, you know what I mean? And certain stage presence.
So this is a cooperative effort where everybody's engaged in making a show, and they yield the stage to other people when it's time for those people to shine. Most of the movement is spontaneous, and some is choreographed. And there's a lot of conscious thought about who is our audience, what do they want to see, what are we showing them, and what can we do to engage them to the max.
And I definitely had moments where like certain things, I would do certain things live at that moment to emphasize the theatrics of it. Like there's a part in the last song that's like the big climax of the song, and I would lift the bass over my head and just like tremolo pick the low B string,
right?
Like for like the theatrics, and just like really get into it while the other guys did that. And it was just part of the stage show. So those are kind of things that are very much discussed.
Good. A lot of bands, or a lot of our listeners, don't do a lot of what you're talking about. They don't discuss those things, and they suffer for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's still moments where, like, you just let the moment take you hold, and like, if you are really feeling a moment, like perfect example, the last show, it was a smaller show because it was a routing date, And so what I did, because I had a wireless unit, I went out into the audience for a couple of the parts and like headbanged with them. And that's a spontaneous thing, but that's also like a cool thing that is involving the audience and being fun. So there's still moments of spontaneity, but definitely you're 100% right that we're not a random band. Like especially certain moments, you want to emphasize that. Like I've definitely, you know, you've known me since my Felix days, and the thing that with me, what it was is that I just knew that if you're not looking like you're into it, they're not going to feel it. So the more you are active on stage, the more, for the most part, people will be animated by that. So if you're playing in a very animated way, you're rocking it, you're tight, and on top of that, you're acting like you're enjoying the music on a very, very active way, then it will translate into people. It's very much like monkey see, monkey do thing, in the good way.
So in closing, I just want to make a few points. This is a band-wide effort. It's not like the lead singer is the only one that shows off and everybody else just stands there. Everybody needs to put on a show. Everybody needs to participate. It starts with a uniform look, and that look supporting your music. And it continues through good stage movement, engaging activity with the audience, and making room for each other on stage so that the show is balanced. It continues from there through minimizing any distractions or things that can cause mistakes and detract from the show. So if lighting enhances the show, then it's good. If it detracts from the show, then it's bad. The same with confetti cannons or fog machines or pyrotechnics, anything. The point being is that when you first start acting on a stage, it feels like it's an individual decision, but it has to be a group decision because you're a band. And remember, it's easy to name bands that put on a great show, but it's hard to name bands that put on a terrible show because they don't last. We're going to close out today's show with some music from my band, WeAreJackStrong. And I just want to thank you all for tuning in for this, the 4th episode of Being Independent. Again, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to ask me, my name is Gregg Oliver, and you can write me at beingindie, that's BEINGINDIE, the number 2, at gmail.com. That's beingindie2 at gmail.com. I have much love and deep gratitude to Alternative Twist Radio, that's alternativetwist.com, who plays my show every Friday at 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you next week on Being Independent.
Front of my own parade. Now I'm focused on the bigger picture. I'm planning to win this game we play. People tell me I'm late to the party. People telling me I've wasted my time. I'm making better choices than I used to. Just trying to flee the scene of the crime. So now I ask what's really important. Show up at the right time, at the right place. Surround yourself with all your favorite people. Don't worry about who's winning the race. Everybody has a realization. When will you have your epiphany? By now you know to the party. People telling me I've wasted my time. I'm making better choices than I used to. Just trying to flee the scene of the crime. Telling me I'm late to the party. People telling me I've wasted my time. I'm making better choices than I used to. Just trying to flee the scene of the. Just trying to flee the scene of the. Just trying to flee the scene of the crime.